Good morning, dear children. Children, in the last class we had learned in the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. The first chemical property, what happens when metal reacts with oxygen. Now, so in the last class we had learned that the first property when metal reacts with oxygen. I told you any of the metal when reacts with oxygen it forms its oxides. Okay, so that oxides will be the basic oxides will tell. Okay, so that was the first chemical property. The first chemical property of metals and non-metals is what happens when metals reacts with oxygen. When metals reacts with oxygen, it forms its oxides. They are the basic oxides. And amphoteric oxides also we have learned. So the amphoteric oxides are what? Those metal oxides which can react both with acids as well as in base. They are called the amphoteric oxides, and the examples also we had learned in detail. So in this class we are going to learn or continue some more chemical properties of metals. Okay. So in that the second chemical property is what happens when metal reacts with water. What happens when metal reacts with water? This is the second chemical property of metals and non-metals. Okay. So let me write some metals, children. The first is very reactive elements: potassium, sodium, okay, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, then zinc, iron, lead, hydrogen, calcium, okay, then mercury, silver, gold. Okay, these are some of the symbols of elements or some of the symbols of the metals. According to the first metal will be the most reactive metal. Okay, the first two metals will be the most reactive metal. Most reactive metal means it can react with any of the substances, children. Okay, it have the more power to react with the substances. That is called more reactive or most reactive. Okay, so up to here it will continue. Next, from lead, come to here, from lead to gold. These are the very less reactive metal, and here the medium reactive metals. Okay, so some metals I have listed here. So based on their reactivity power, they react with the water. Okay, based on their reactivity power or the reactions. If they react with any of the substances, if many products will get, then that metal will be the most reactive elements or the metals. And some which medium reactive with elements. Okay, or it reacts with only some of the minimum substances. Then that is called medium reactive elements. And some are there which is less reactive elements. So they are these elements or the metals. The list is here in front of you. Okay, yeah. So let me move on to that. Our reaction, that is what happens when metal reacts with water. So let me take the first metal, that is potassium and sodium. As I told you, potassium and sodium is the most reactive. So it can have the capacity to react with cold water. It directly reacts with cold water. Okay, no need to give heat, so no need to do any other actions okay, that if you react with only with the cold water, then it starts giving the product. So potassium have the capacity to react with cold water. What happens when potassium or sodium reacts with cold water? then it forms potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Then when sodium reacts with water, it forms sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Okay, as I told you children, they both in the reactivity metal series, they both comes first list. Okay, so when it have the capacity to directly react with the cold water. When it starts reacting with the cold water, it forms its hydroxide. The products are hydroxide and hydrogen. Okay, when metal reacts with the cold water, then it reacts it reacts with hydrogen. It forms hydroxide and hydrogen. As I told you, it reacts with water. No need to give any heat. It automatically produces its heat. Why? Because it's a very violent reaction. This reaction is a very violent reaction, or it is a highly exothermic. Exothermic means heat produced. Just if you add a little bit of potassium to the water, then it starts giving its product or starts producing heat. For example, let us see if I add water, in the water, if I add sodium to it or potassium to it, okay, then this potassium and sodium will not sink. It floats on water. It floats, this potassium and sodium will not sink, it floats on water. Okay, when potassium or sodium, when it reacts with water, automatically it starts giving or starts releasing the hydrogen gas. It starts releasing the gas called hydrogen. So this hydrogen gas, when it starts coming out, okay, automatically it will catch fire. Means how it catch fire? What we need to catch fire? We need oxygen. Okay, because of more heat it is having, when potassium and sodium will, if it reacts with the water, then it starts giving the reactions will be more heat it starts producing. Okay, so when it starts producing heat in the form of bubble, this hydrogen starts coming out, rising up. Understood? So when it starts rising up, then it starts reacting with oxygen, then it catches the fire. Understood? It won't form water. When hydrogen reacts with water, it should form the water. No? So when hydrogen reacts with oxygen. But here what will happen? So here as we react with this water in the form of bubble, this hydrogen rise up. Then surrounding the oxygen will be there by the atmospheric oxygen. It catches the oxygen and it starts catching fire. Okay, at the same time, the sodium and potassium which floats on the water, as I told you, that also will react with hydrogen and it starts catch fire. So, we need to store this potassium and sodium in the kerosene. You will get the question. This is a very important question. What is the necessity of storing of potassium and sodium in the kerosene? Because we cannot keep in the laboratory as we are keeping the other chemicals or the other these things. Okay, so we have to store it in a kerosene, sodium and potassium. What is the reason means? Because this sodium and potassium is a highly exothermic. It starts reacting with the outer side atmospheric oxygen and it starts catch fire. Understood? So that is why we need to store this potassium and sodium in the kerosene. Understood? Yeah. So this is the first reaction. That is what happens when sodium and potassium reacts with the water. So it reacts with the water because of its highly exothermic reactive process, or the character in it reacts with water. It forms hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide. Okay, so sodium hydroxide. Understood? So these oxides, hydroxides are basic. Okay, and it forms the hydrogen gas also. When this hydrogen gas kerosene. Understood? Yeah. So let me move on to that. See here children, here we have very less reactive elements, no? Metals, it do not react with any of the things. It do not react with any substance at any condition. Any substance at any condition. Okay, see this like Pb is like Pb, hydrogen H, calcium Ca. Okay, so mercury Hg, silver Ag, gold Au. Okay, so these are the less reactive metals. These metals do not react with any of the substances at any condition. So no need of any reaction. So already I have explained this reaction. Let me move on to this. So see here, this aluminium, calcium. Next we come to the calcium. So the next reactive metal is the calcium. So calcium also can react with the cold water. Calcium can react with cold water, but the reason is calcium do not catches fire because of its less reactive. Because compared to, it is also very violent reaction, but compared to sodium and potassium, calcium is a little less reactive. So it do not catches fire. What will happen if you add this calcium in the water? It sinks. It sinks. It sinks and it forms the solution. So when it reacts with water, this calcium reacts with water, then again it starts getting the formation of hydrogen bubble. Okay, so the product is again the calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. But here the difference is calcium do not catch fire. Why means because of its less active reactive metal, and here the hydrogen will, when it starts getting bubble, okay, it do not react with it do not catch the oxygen because of its less heat produced. So see children, if anything you take, if it wants to burn, it need two things. Now, so one is the heat, another one is oxygen. If these two, heat and oxygen, if it is more quantity, if it is there or if it is produced, then automatically it catches fire. That in the case of sodium and potassium it will happen. But if we come to the calcium, though it is a next reactive metal, but because of its very less heat produced will be taken place in this. So that's why it do not catch fire, but it gives the products. So what will be the products for this calcium? So see here, I will write the reaction here children. When calcium reacts with water, it forms calcium hydroxide, CaOH whole 2 plus hydrogen gas. Understood? So the reaction of this is here. When calcium reacts with water, it forms calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Hydrogen gas will be there. You want the hydrogen gas, but the thing is it do not catch fire because very less heat produced in the calcium when it reacts with water. Understood? Next, in the case of next come to the magnesium, we will read later. Aluminium, zinc and iron. What happens when this medium reactive metal reacts with water? When aluminium reacts, see I will write the equation here. When aluminium reacts with water, it forms Al2O3 plus H2, aluminium oxide. Okay, and the hydrogen gas. Next, when zinc reacts with water, it forms zinc oxide and hydrogen gas. When iron reacts with water, it forms iron oxide, Fe2O3 plus hydrogen gas. See, these are the equation, chemical equation. You need to write. You need to by heart this equation, chemical equations. Very important. Okay. So now what happens when these medium reactive element or metals reacts with water? When these metals reacts with water, it forms its oxide, zinc oxide, iron oxide. See, oxide, oxide, oxide. Wherever it will come, so they are the basic oxide. Okay. So for this, if you take the litmus paper and dip it in that, what will get the turning of the color? The red litmus turns to blue, because in the base always the red litmus turns to blue, red to blue. No. So why? Because of here the products we get as a oxide, basic oxide. Understood? Yeah. So see, here water in the sense we have to take here steam. Steam. Say this aluminium, zinc and iron is there, no? These three metals, medium reactive metals, it do not react with any cold water, any hot water. It reacts with the steam. You have the experiment in your textbook, children. Okay, go through that. See, if these three metals when reacts with steam, then it forms its oxide and hydrogen gas. Understood? Yeah. So next, let us move on to the magnesium. What happens when magnesium reacts with water? First of all, which water? Magnesium reacts with hot water. So let me write here. Magnesium have the capacity to react with hot water. Hot water. Okay. When magnesium reacts with hot water, it forms magnesium hydroxide plus hydrogen gas. Magnesium hydroxide. Again OH. Wherever the OH will be there, that is called hydroxide. Wherever the O will be there at the product side, that is called oxides. They both are basic one, because they turns red litmus to blue. Understood? So only magnesium have the capacity to react with hot water. When it reacts with hot water, it forms magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. When sodium and potassium, when potassium and sodium reacts with water, it forms hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Due to its highly exothermic reaction, it catches fire. So that's why we need to store in the kerosene. Next, so these are the very less reactive metals. It do not react with any of the substance at any condition. Next, the medium reactive metals, they are react with the steam. It has the capacity to react with the steam. Then it forms as oxides and hydrogen gas. Then at last, magnesium, which is also a high medium reactive element or metal, it